it's probably not much of a surprise if you've been watching a number of my previous videos to learn that I haven't historically been the biggest fan of the red pill or the MGTOW movements. This has been compounded by the fact that I have a very well-documented, colorful, full history of lots of sort of promiscuous sex, lots of fun, like sexual encounters. And then as well as the fact that I've had a very, healthy, happy, stable 10-year relationship with my current partner. And at the same time, red pill and MGTOW sort of philosophies tell men the only way to really have a stable relationship, the only way to have like lots of promiscuous relationships with women is to follow these philosophies. And yet I don't. Fortunately, in spite of the fact that I often claim that a lot of red pill and MGTOW guys are total zealots and just shut down the second I open my mouth, it's not true of all. And I've had some really great guys from especially the red pill community, listen to some of my videos, and they've said, look, some of what you've said is interesting, but I feel you still don't fully get what the red pill community is about. And a number of them have said, I'd really appreciate it, Damien, if you were willing to do some more reading on red pill philosophy. And they suggested a book, a number of them suggested that I read Rollo Tomassi's The Rational Male. And so I did. I thought, you know what, that's fair. Fair's fair. I'm going to learn a little bit more. I'm going to go deeper. I'm not just going to hang out in the red pill communities and see what people say there. I'm going to see what the core philosophies are. So I did that. I grabbed a copy of Rollo Tomassi's book and I read it. And I am extremely glad that I did. Am I a convert? No. But I will say this. There is a lot more good in the red pill philosophy than I realized. There's a lot of danger. There's a lot of bad, very unhealthy mindsets going on. But I also think there's a lot of good. And I can see, and I'm going to talk today about what's the great stuff in there. What do I really like? What do I think is really dangerous? What do I think men need to be very cautious about? Because at the end of the day, if you just believe, if you're a man who feels like life has treated him like crap, like women have treated him like crap, and there's a lot of frustration, and you feel like your only two options are keep feeling this way or keep living this life or follow the red pill philosophy. Red pill philosophy is going to give you a much better quality of life. But life isn't binary. So you've got more options than just being walked all over or following the red pill philosophy. And that's really what I want to talk to you about today. What's the good, what's the bad, and what's the ugly of Rollo Tomassi's Rational Male and the red pill movement? Keep watching to find out. It was a very interesting experience reading this book. I've got to admit, I found myself, it started right in the beginning. I started reading and I started to cringe, like really cringe, like so much so that it's hard to keep reading. Like when you're watching a TV show and something really cringeworthy is happening and you just want to look away. I had this experience and then all of a sudden I'd read something and say, yes, this I agree with. This is really good advice. And then I'd go back to cringing like, this is really good advice. And then I'd go back to reading. And I'd have this experience with the book. And one of the big reasons I had this experience with the book is that the philosophies that are given, the philosophy, the frame, there's a lot of very dangerous mindsets at play. And I'll sort of explain this. The Rational Male and red pill is very, very obsessed with power struggle, with power games. There's a very strong current of the feminine imperative. Everything's about power and status and leveraging that power and status and manipulating how women are going to respond to you. So everything you do is about trying to leverage your power in a relationship with a woman or women in general. And that's the philosophy actually behind a lot of this. And I think that that's dangerous. And then, so I'm cringing while I'm reading this. And then all of a sudden, bam, there's this really great piece of advice. But to me, the philosophy isn't required to follow the really great advice. So why is this such a red flag? Like, why is this dangerous? Well, look, it's not because I'm not saying that there aren't dominance hierarchies in the world. There are. I'm not saying that certainly in politics right now, there isn't this big feminist push trying to push guys, it's really empowering women a lot more than men and hurting men. Now, there's a lot of crap going on that upsets me greatly. I'm not saying that isn't there, but there's a difference between seeing this stuff on a macro scale, that it's kind of existing in society a bit, especially around politics and laws that are being passed and whatnot, and seeing it in the micro world. So seeing every interaction you have with a woman, in this case it's with a woman, but a man or a woman, but seeing almost every interaction you have with a woman as a dominance hierarchy, seeing every interaction you have as a power struggle. When you become fixated on this stuff, that becomes pathology, it becomes pathological, it becomes a problem that needs attention. And that's the thing. I mean, we've all known guys, surely, we've all known guys who sometime in our lives, they're obsessed with dominance and hierarchy. And like everything that happens in social interactions is like, it's this whole big deal. Like if they feel disrespected, or if they feel like they didn't get to have their say when people are having a group discussion, they lose their minds. Or when, I don't know, if you give them a handshake and they feel like you were trying to do something to out-dominate them in the handshake, they lose their minds. We've all known guys like this. And when we become obsessed with dominance and power, it doesn't make us look confident. Yeah, I mean, we don't look at Donald Trump as a great example. We don't look at Donald Trump and think of him, at least I don't, as a confident person. I look at him as someone who's very insecure and constantly scrambling for a sense of power. He has power. I mean, there's not many people who have more power than the president of the USA, but nonetheless, this is not a guy who feels like, he feels like he's constantly fighting for leverage over other people to feel like he's powerful. And that's not the sign of what I see as true confidence, as true self-empowerment. And then, Rollo talks a lot about this female imperative thing, and this is a big red flag too. It's a red flag because the idea is predicated on terrible science. First of all, there's a female imperative and there's a male imperative. But the thing is, honestly, the best minds in the world all agree we don't know what those imperatives are. We don't exactly know. We're incredibly unclear. If you do still a little research on genetics, on human genetics and how that suggests men and women should behave. If we look at like the genetic history, right? If we look at anthropology and historically, like how human tribes that we know of and have documented how they've behaved across the world. If we look at psychiatrists and psychologists and our best guesses about human history, and we just look at all of this, there's absolutely no clarity at all around what the female imperative is. So, the red pill, it creates this very rational, it's not stupid, it's not idiotic, but it creates this story about how women need to pair bond because that's how they create safety for themselves to raise a child. And that could be true, but it doesn't have to be true, because when you study primates, for example, it's perfectly clear that primates have often different sexual behaviors, men and women, depending on their environment. And so, for example, there's every reason to believe that human females, when they're in a very safe environment, they don't feel the urge to pair bond. Why would that be? Because there's no need to know who the father is. If you live in a safe community and you sleep with 7 different guys and you get pregnant, the tribe will look after you. Your sisters and brothers and cousins and everyone is family already. Everyone's going to look after any children in the tribe. And there are plenty of primates who behave this way. And then when society becomes dangerous, if we live in a very dangerous society, women will then start to pair bond with men. And true enough, we actually see this. We see this anthropologically. When you look at tribes who engage in warfare, you get very strict pair bonding rules where women are treated more and more like property, and women have to pair up with men, and there's no philandering, and there's big punishment for cheating by women. And paternal concern becomes a huge deal. When you look at tribes or cultures which didn't have any warfare, it was very safe environments and very comfortable, easy to live environments. You don't see that anymore. What you see is you suddenly see matriarchal societies where there's lots of promiscuous sex by women and men. Everyone's sleeping with everyone. There's not a whole lot of concern about paternal certainty, about who the father is. So, yeah, I mean, you can't, it's vague. And so, yeah, the more research you do, the more it becomes clear there is no obvious feminine imperative. There isn't. We don't know what it is. There's something there. I mean, women are going to push for something slightly different to men, and that's going to be influenced by the society we live in and the social mores and things that were taught as children, what is right and wrong. And I agree with the red pill guys. On the whole, what we're taught is bollocks. I just think it's a different kind of bollocks to what a lot of red pill guys think, philosophically speaking. So, I was cringing reading these philosophies, and then, bam, Rollo would say something that I'm like, Absolutely, man. Shit, yeah, give me a high five. I agree. But I agree on a totally different set of philosophies. And I'll give you a couple of examples because I think this is important. Right towards the beginning of The Rational Male, Rollo Tomassi says something along the lines of, look, in a relationship, there's always going to be some sense of instability. So a woman's always going to feel like a man's got his own world that she doesn't know much about, his own friends, his own social networks, and he's constantly improving himself and becoming a better guy. And that leads a woman to feel like, oh, if I don't work on myself and I don't treat him well, he's going to be able to find someone else. So you're constantly creating this stability. This is before you even get to the whole spinning plates concept, and I'll talk about that later, but this is essentially what he's saying. And this is where I cringe. And then he goes ahead and he says, so what's the solution? The solution is, if you're in a relationship, you should always have your own friends, always have your own social networks. You should go out on your own at times, and do your own things. And you should be constantly trying to improve yourself and constantly working on yourself as a man. Yes, yes, and yes, that's absolutely what men should be doing. But not because you're trying to leverage power against women or create instability in the relationship. And that's the part that blows my mind. If you're doing these things, because frame is really important. If you're doing these things because you're trying to make sure that you're creating instability for a woman, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You're not working on becoming a man because what's my philosophy? My philosophy is any man at any time should always have his own life, his own social network. Okay? And why should he do this? A man's got to have this because your social network is your emotional stability, right? Not your partner. What a lot of men do is they get in a relationship with a woman and they make her they give her sole responsibility to look after his emotional needs, right? He's having a good day, he's having a bad day, he's feeling a bit depressed, someone in his family dies, his boss is angry at him. That becomes her job and her job alone. When you don't have your own friends and your own social network away from that puts so much pressure on a human being. Forget the fact she's a woman. That just puts pressure on a human being. So yeah, you've got to be having these other people around. And these other people also, they help you when shit goes wrong in the relationship. It's someone to talk to and give you balanced feedback and balanced information on the relationship, right? Because your partner shouldn't be the only thing in your world. You've got to have other stuff going on, not because you're trying to create instability, but because you want to lead a full and healthy and happy life. This is not a matter of trying to leverage stuff against women. This is just about having a healthy mindset about being a man who's got his own stuff going on. There's no need for a feminine imperative in my explanation of events. It still leads to the same outcome. And I think this is why also many men really feel confused with me, because it's like I disagree with their philosophies, but then in many ways I still live my life in the way that they think they should. And that's an interesting thing. But philosophies, they're important. And I'll explain more about this later, but I'll give you a second example. I want to talk about the whole spinning plates concept. Spinning plates, just so you know, Rollo Tomassi talks about this over multiple chapters. It's the notion of keeping lots of women around at different times in your life because it helps boost your confidence, in essence. And so, for example, Rollo Tomassi talks about the fact that you should really ideally stay single in your 20s and date lots of women so you have lots of experience with women. And so when you do get in a relationship, you've got that experience behind you and you feel confident with women and you don't feel like she's the only woman for you. And you're not going to fall into this sense of she's the only woman in the world for me, which I agree is this thinking is not healthy. And I think that's generally good advice. I think most men don't do that. Most men they get in a relationship with the first woman who bats an eyelid at him, and that's terrible because he feels like he can't do any better, he can't get anywhere else, he feels trapped, he doesn't have experience with women. I completely agree with that for the most part. However, then he goes on to talk about the fact that what you should do in a relationship is always keep plates spinning. In other words, always have other women on the side that you're not sleeping with, but you could if you wanted to. Like, you've got to constantly keep women on the periphery that you could run away to. That is really unhealthy. Let me give you an example. Imagine if you had a friend in a relationship and every week that friend would give you a phone call. And in that phone call, your friend would say to you, hey man, do you think other women will still like me? I'm just wondering because I'm in this relationship with this girl. Do you think other women will still like me? And you go, yeah man, yeah, of course they will. Don't worry about it. Cool. Calls you again next week. Hey man, do you think other women will still like me? Yeah man, don't worry about it. Don't worry. Cool. Gives you a call next week. Hey man, do you think other women will still like me? And imagine he does this every single week. In other words, he's looking to you to remind him that he's still going to be okay to find other women. How confident do you think your friend is? Do you think your friend needs help? Right? And that's really the problem, is that if you need to keep being reminded that there are other women in the world, that you're good enough to attract other women, if you need reminding of that, you're not dealing with your shit. That's as simple as that. If you know, the spinning plates concept in relationships is like a band-aid. It's like taking painkillers when you got cancer. It doesn't fix the problem. It just kind of dulls the pain. Like, you know, it's a temporary fix, not a permanent solution. You got to deal with that stuff. And so I guess this is, you know, I disagree with a lot of this. There's this philosophy constantly of trying to manipulate and play with her emotions to make her behave the way you want her to, rather than focusing on being the kind of man that you should be, whether you're in a relationship or single, just being that man. And so what's the overarching philosophy that I think would cover all this? Honestly, what men need to do is, instead of focusing on this power, leveraging games, all this kind of stuff, the truly healthy way to behave is to say this: I am a priority. Me as a man, I am the most important thing in my world, not a woman. And my needs are the most important things. And sometimes my needs can be negotiated on with women, and sometimes they can't because they're just a big overpowering need. Now, I want to be in a relationship with women, and if I'm going to be in a relationship or just dating, I'm going to make sure my needs are looked after. And if they're not being looked after, I'm going to vocalize it like a healthy adult. I'm not going to cry, I'm not going to whinge, I'm not going to bitch, I'm not going to moan. I'm going to say, hey, I've got this need, can we talk about how we can get it dealt with? And if the need can't be dealt with, and it's a big important need, then you say, hey, I like you, lady, but I'm sorry, this isn't going to work. And you move on. That's a healthy man. That's a healthy relationship. You're demonstrating a higher value in yourself because you're going to look after your needs first. Every relationship is supposed to have that. So let me use my own experience, my own life as an example of how this all plays out. Before I met my partner 10 years ago, I was, I don't know how many women I've slept with, honestly. It's in the triple digits somewhere. I haven't kept a clear count, but I had plenty of experience. So I got that under my belt, and then I met my partner. Over the 10 years, we have had to have a lot of really difficult conversations at times because we're human. So throughout the 10 years, we've been through different phases where one of us has said to the other, hey, I'm not feeling attracted to you right now. Something's going wrong in the relationship. Let's talk about it. We've had conversations where we've said, hey, I'm feeling really attracted to sleeping with other men or other women. Can we do something about this? And yet we have. We've been in an open relationship multiple times throughout the 10 years. And we've done it in an adult way. We've said, hey, I've got these needs. I still want you in my life, but I want to be promiscuous for a little while. Like, I want to feel sexy again. I want to do all these things that can be hard to do for your partner in a 10-year relationship. We both make sure that the other party is always pulling their own weight. This is a big mistake a lot of guys make. And again, Rollo Tomassi has his own strategies around this, and Red Pill has their own philosophies. But honestly, it's your job. You don't have to play this game of never living with a woman until you're married or any of this crap. Just make sure that a woman's always pulling her weight. If you're in a relationship and you don't feel like she's contributing 50%, whatever that is, in the relationship, if you don't feel like it's fair, what are you doing? Don't stick around. Tell her this isn't fair, and this is why. And if she doesn't, you talk about it and try to make it work. And if it doesn't work, you walk away. I've been with my partner for 10 years, and if we split up tomorrow and she takes half my money, I'm okay with that because she was contributing. I always made sure it was fair. The fact that she was in my life, I've made more than double the money I would have made alone. Or my life has been more than twice as good. I think that's a fairer way to put it. And so, yeah, if we split up and she takes half my money, I'm not ripped off. I'm better off for the experience, and I've made damn sure of that. If you can't make damn sure of that, then you should leave the woman you're with. It's that simple. I think a lot of these rules, a lot of these things, you deserve to demand more of the women that you date. And you should demand more of the women that you date. You should demand more of the women you even see casually. You don't accept bad behavior. You don't have to play a power game to be someone who isn't going to accept it. If I walk up to a woman and approach her in a club, women don't flake on me. They don't play games with me because the second they try, they can clearly see I don't give a damn for their games. I don't get involved. I don't play games back. They can see they start to lose me the second they start to play games, and they start to behave properly again. It's like when I'm at events, it happens so often. Guys will come up and they give me a handshake, and sometimes they try to play a dominance game. They try to twist their hand so it's on top of mine and shake their hand to do a dominance move. And I don't play back. I don't try to arm wrestle them back. I kind of like smile a little bit, and I'm like, wow, really? Well, this guy's got some insecurity stuff going on. Mental note, don't really have any need to hang around with him much. That's my position. No games, no battling, no power hierarchies, just cool, whatever, man. You do you, but your you isn't what me is interested in, so go that way. And that's how you should be with women. That's how you should be with life. It's you looking after you, being the man you want to be, having really clear boundaries, and setting those boundaries. And once your boundaries are looked after, you look after women. I mean, I look after my partner. My partner is the second most important thing after me, right? So I do everything in my power to make sure, to look after her, so long as I'm not sacrificing my own needs. That's my goal, and that's her goal in her life, and I demand the same of her. And that's fair. That's not red pill, that's not blue pill, but that's healthy. That's being a healthy man. So overall, what do I think about red pill now? I think it can be a very healthy first step. Not a very healthy. I think it can be a first step that can really help men get out of their stuff, get out of the crap that they're in. I don't think it's the only option. I think that if you feel like you've been walked all over and treated badly by women in life, before you turn to red pill, maybe grab a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. Really fantastic read. And it really answers a lot of the questions of why you've been walked all over and treated like crap without needing, the feminine imperative and women against men and power struggles and all this stuff. It explains from a psychological level why this happens. And I think that's a much better first step. But I think that red pill, I see the appeal, especially because when you feel like you've been walked all over and treated like crap, and then you read a book that says, hey, the world is a little bit against you. It validates those feelings, right? And it says the world is a little bit against you. Here's how to make it better. It feels like it speaks to you. So I understand the appeal. I feel like that's a dangerous space to start. To say, yeah, the world is against you and the world is a little bit like power struggles and games, and to get caught up with that. I don't think that's healthy. And the last thing I'll say is be really wary of being too strictly adhered to the concept of red pill and blue pill. No matter what philosophy you follow, like mine or red pill or MGTOW or anything else, you gotta stay open-minded. The world is not black and white, guys. Whatever you believe now is not what you're going to believe next year, and it's not writ in stone. It's not perfect. You've got to accept that it's not perfect. And so if you listen to someone like me and you go, oh, well, he doesn't believe exactly what I believe, blue pill, white knight, cuck, get out of here. Then I'm sorry, but you're not being a healthy guy. You're being a zealot. You're in a cult then. You got to stay open-minded. I mean, you may disagree, but you can't disagree outright just because I disagree. That's childish, really. I try to be open-minded, and I've got my own views on these things. And I think so long as if you're red pill now and it's working for you, stick with it. Be open-minded. Be open-minded. Maybe there's better mindsets. Maybe there's better frames to come at this from. You should always be moving through life that way, and you will. You'll get to a better place more rapidly by not being so closed off. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I think that, there's so much I wanted to say, and I really hope this didn't come out as just one long ramble, which it could easily have done. If you've liked a lot of what I've had to say, I've written an entire guide on how to meet and attract women from this standpoint of honesty and integrity, not playing mind games, not getting caught up with power struggles, just being a confident, strong, solid man with healthy boundaries that women are going to be drawn to. I've made an entire free guide on this that you can go and check out right now. I've put a link up here. There, I'm going to take my gavel. I think it's up there. I'm going to put a link down below as well. Go ahead and start reading it. It's really fantastic. You can get it as an audiobook too if you want. But yeah, go ahead and register and check that out. What have you thought of this video? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to just have a jab and insult me, do it, of course. But I'd love to encourage some really rational, logical feedback. If there's studies you want to point me to, if there's information or another book you think would be great for me to read, I'm always open to expanding my own horizons and learning and growing. I hope today's video demonstrates that, because that's what I'm really all about. I want the truth. I don't want to be right. I just want the truth. So yeah, let me know in the comments below, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you in my future videos. Take care.